The thing I hate the most about being sober is constantly being asked why I don't drink. Especially in early sobriety, that was the hardest thing because the last thing I wanted to think about was the fact that I wasn't drinking. I just wanted to fly under the radar, get through the day. I was deeply struggling with my own thoughts and adjusting to this new lifestyle. I don't want to talk to every stranger I meet out and about why I don't drink. I think that question is counterproductive to early sobriety and the kind of difficulties that come in those early stages. But you do get asked this question a lot, especially in the beginning, before people just realize like, oh, she doesn't drink. When it's new to people that you know, they're like, she used to drink a lot, now she doesn't. Something must have changed. It makes sense why people would have questions. And when you go out in public, like to bars and stuff, it makes sense. Like you're in a place where everyone's drinking and you're the person who's not drinking. And so a lot of times people are curious and they ask, why don't you drink? Or why aren't you drinking? And so today I wanted to make an episode all about how to answer that question. And your answer is going to be different depending on what your personal situation is. But I wanted to give some options for how to answer that so that you can have some answers that you're comfortable with in your back pocket and you won't have to think and explain and feel uncomfortable and feel like you're the odd man out. Like these responses will give you some options for something that is suited to you, what makes sense for you, and that you are comfortable with. So let's get right into it. Welcome to Hold My Drink, a sobriety podcast. This is a no judgment zone. I really freaking like my life without alcohol. You're not alone. I hope you feel seen. Sobriety has changed my life completely. All right, I have a few different options listed here that I go to sometimes and that I feel comfortable with. I haven't been asked this question in quite a while because people in my life know that I don't drink and they are supportive in my sobriety. So it's not really a question that comes up anymore. But for example, I'm about to go on a trip with a ton of people that I haven't seen in a really long time. And a lot of them will notice that I'm not drinking because it's a place where drinking is heavily embraced. It's Mardi Gras. Probably by the time this episode is out, I will have already done it. But right now I'm preparing to go on this trip and I'm sure I'm going to be asked this question a lot. So this is kind of a reminder for me as well for what I can say to these people too when they ask why I don't drink. So why don't you drink? Number one, I'm really prioritizing my health right now. That is just such a simple answer. Everyone understands that. We all know that alcohol is not good for you. We do it anyways because it's fun, because it takes the stress away, whatever. But we all know that alcohol is not good for you. So plain and simple, I'm kind of on a health journey right now and I've removed alcohol. Or I'm focusing on my health. I'm prioritizing my health right now. Whatever you want to say. I'm really passionate about my health. Period. End of. Like we don't have to shape this answer to make the listener feel super comfortable. It's for ourselves. Sobriety is something we're doing for ourselves, and the person that we're talking to doesn't necessarily need to know all the details. They're not going to say, why don't you drink? And I respond with, well, because I used to hide White Claw cans under the bed and would go through multiple bottles of wine per day and wouldn't let my boyfriend take out the trash because the cans would be clinking around in the garbage can. Like, I'm not going to say that to every single person that I meet, and I don't want to, and that's private. So I don't feel the need to tell everyone that. And giving a plain and simple answer that feels right to you is the way to go, in my opinion. So plain and simple, I'm focused on my health right now. I'm prioritizing my health, period, end of. Next one. This one's divulging a little bit more information and will probably lead to a conversation or follow-up questions. But now that I'm passionate in my sobriety, I go to this one often. It is, I was developing an unhealthy relationship with alcohol, so I decided it's best for me to cut it out of my life. Bam. Kind of answers all the questions. And I feel like most people will say, good for you, or wow, that's so cool. But some people will follow up and ask questions. I had one friend say, Are you an alcoholic? And again, in early sobriety, that's not something I wanted to talk about. And that's like such a deep question and personal. And I wasn't comfortable answering that. And I think saying I was developing an unhealthy relationship with alcohol just kind of says like I was going down that path and I didn't want to go any further. And I like this answer. I'm comfortable talking about my sobriety now, so I'm okay with follow-up questions. But yeah, I think this answers a lot of the questions and states also that you're not interested in drinking anymore. Like, don't offer me a drink. Don't try to convince me. Don't say one drink won't hurt, because you've said I was heading down the wrong path. I was developing an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. And most people will not try to push you back into that if you've chosen to get sober for those reasons. Okay, another response. Why don't you drink? I am just a better person without alcohol. Period. That's another period. End of. And people will probably be like, wow, that's super cool. Good for you. You might get some questions like, oh, were you an angry drunk? Oh, were you an emotional drunk? Did anything happen? Did you go to jail? Oh my God, what happened? Why did you stop drinking? So, yeah, a lot of these can open up a can of worms, and that's why you just have to find the one that feels the most right for you and only opens up a can of worms that you are comfortable talking about. So, I'm just a better person without alcohol. Bam. I love that one. Okay. Why don't you drink? How about this? I did dry January and realized my life is a lot better without it. That's kind of similar to the previous one, but it shows that like you used to drink too. You tried out sobriety for a short period of time and realized it's kind of awesome. And so you continued. I think for me, I don't judge anybody who drinks ever. I was somebody who drank. I think if you're able to drink responsibly, that's wonderful and good for you. Like, I am jealous. And drinking can be fun. Drinking is a part of our culture and our society. And I don't judge people who drink. And so I don't want to say anything that casts any sort of judgment. And so I think the whole like, I tried out sobriety for a couple months and I realized that I prefer my life without alcohol. I think that's a great answer. Or I tried out dry January or whatever it is. I wanted to test out going sober for my health, and I realized like life is awesome without alcohol, so I just continued. I think that's a great answer. Wow, that might be my new favorite. That might be my go-to. Because I did try a dry January 2024, and then I got back into drinking, and then I finally quit in June 2024. Anyways, who cares about the timeline? Yeah, so saying that you tried dry January, it's like understanding that alcohol is a part of life and you enjoyed it too, but your life is just better without it. I think that's a really good one. Okay, next one on my list. Why don't you drink? It wasn't adding to my life in a positive way, so I decided to remove it. I think that's cool too. It kind of says like alcohol only had negative effects. It doesn't go into the specifics of that, but like it wasn't adding to your life. A lot of times kind of similar to this one, what I said in the very early days of sobriety is I didn't want to drink while I was still working on my goals. That was poorly said. But I used to say like quitting alcohol has improved my health and my wealth, and I just like my life better without it. I think that was one of my really common answers is the health and wealth thing. I don't know. I like how that sounds, and it's so true. Your health improves, your finances improve, and I think that's like a fun, positive spin on sobriety. When somebody asks, why don't you drink? You just say, my health and wealth are better without it. And, alcohol wasn't positively contributing to my life. I wasn't achieving my goals with alcohol in my life. Just a few little sprinkles of answers that you can go for. So, like I said, I don't judge people who drink at all. First of all, if you drink, I get it. It's fun. It takes the edge off. Like, I get it. I was there. I did that. If you binge drink or drink in ways that you shouldn't, like to cover up sadness or anger or as a Band-Aid to things that happen in your life, I'm also very understanding of that. And I understand that a person who drinks that way is probably freaking battling their demons and dealing with a lot. And so I don't judge people who drink in a healthy, responsible way or in an unhealthy, irresponsible way. I don't judge. And so I personally don't want to say any snarky comments to the question of why don't you drink. Some people have told me that they say something like, because alcohol kills you, or like, because alcohol is a carcinogen, or, alcohol is the cause of a lot of diseases and I don't want to get those, or it ruins your life and your finances and your health, so I don't drink. I mean, I agree with all of those, but it's so harsh. And I get that some people in sobriety can have this like hatred for alcohol and what it did to them and what it does to other people. And I don't have that hatred. It was a big part of my life for a long time, and I'm understanding of people who have alcohol as part of their lives. This is a personal decision that I've made, and I don't need to like talk down about somebody else's behavior while I'm explaining why I have my behaviors of not drinking. Does that make sense? I don't need to yuck somebody's yum, as they say, like talk down about something that they do to almost boost myself up. Like that's not necessary. I just explain why I personally don't drink, and I don't judge them. And I hope that they don't judge me either. Another common response that people give is that they're on antibiotics. That's something that I've heard, like if you don't want to tell somebody why you don't drink, or you're not comfortable yet with explaining that to somebody, or you don't have any answers prepared, a lot of people just lie and say, I'm on antibiotics, I can't drink. And that's a short, easy fix. I've never done that because I don't like lying. It makes me feel uncomfortable. Some people use that though, just to get out of a situation. And I get it. I mean, sometimes strangers are a little bit invasive with the questions. And you're thinking to yourself, you don't even know me. Why do you care why I don't drink? But you know what? It's because people are dumbfounded by sober people. They are just infatuated with someone who can live their life sober when they've never lived a life in sobriety. It is like, wow, whoa, what is this alien species? And so I get why people might lie and say that they're on antibiotics. Another common one is to just say, I'm taking a break right now. I said this in the beginning of my sobriety because I didn't have the confidence in myself to be sure that I would stick it out. It's like that was almost to cover myself if I failed. Like, I'm just taking a break right now. That's what I would say. And deep in my soul, I knew that I had a problem with alcohol, and I definitely didn't want to drink again. Like, it's not that I was taking a break, it's that it was out of my life forever. But I didn't want to say that because what if I failed? Or relapsed. I don't like that word. I don't like the word addict, alcoholic, relapse. Like, I don't like those words. They seem scary and intense and unnecessary, at least for my sobriety journey. But yeah, what if I drank again and I failed this sobriety thing? Like, so saying I'm just taking a break right now was just a nice way to cover myself in case I failed. But now I'm confident enough to say that, like, I'm just not a person who drinks, or one of those answers that I stated above. Like, it's just not a part of my life. And boom, shakalaka. End of story. I think you have to just find whatever is right for you. Maybe have a few things in your back pocket for like telling friends and family, people who actually know you, and then have a couple responses ready to go for like strangers that you interact with, a friend of a friend, the random gal at the bar, like, anything, the bartender. I mean, people are curious. Like I said, they're infatuated with sober people, and you're going to get asked the question. And so I think just be prepared and have a couple things ready to go in your back pocket that you can say to that question, why don't you drink? Or why aren't you drinking? And like I said, I totally understand the people who ask. That would have been me, 100%. In fact, I have looking back, it was just like such an embarrassing moment where this one guy wasn't drinking at a house party. And I'm sure I had a few drinks myself by then, and I was just grilling him about why he doesn't drink. And deep down, maybe it was because I was curious about sobriety myself, but I did it in such a judgmental way. I said, well, why can't you just drink today? And like, was there something in your life that made you stop drinking? Like, those are such personal questions, and I just wish I would have handled it differently. And I was peer pressuring him to drink. I'm so embarrassed of myself. But I was like peer pressuring this person to join us in drinking. And this kind of goes back to why I think it's important to have kind of a definitive answer of like, I don't drink. Like there's nothing you can say that would convince me to drink. I think having a response to the question of why don't you drink that is definitive is really powerful, because it doesn't leave room for somebody to peer pressure you and say, why not just tonight? It's a special occasion. Just have one. Try this. It's a cocktail, blah, blah, blah. Like if you have a definitive answer of I don't drink for health reasons, for weight loss, for whatever it is, I don't drink because I was developing an unhealthy relationship with alcohol, period. I think having something definitive is really important, and it stops people from feeling like they can peer pressure you into drinking. I think that guy said he's experimenting with sobriety or like taking a break, or he said something like that. And that kind of opened the gates for someone like me to be like, oh, come on. Like, I just don't get why you wouldn't drink. What are the reasons? Like, have one of these. They're so good. Try this. Or, like, I was peer pressuring him, and that's so embarrassing and so bad. And we should never peer pressure anybody to do anything. But all that to say, I would have been the person asking the questions to the sober person in the room. And I wish I hadn't. So I guess here's a piece of advice. If you are a person who drinks and you're curious why somebody is not drinking, I might say something like, I notice you're not drinking. Good for you. And leave it at that. Hey, India, I notice you're not drinking. Good for you. That's such a positive spin on it. Oh my God. I would love to have somebody say that to me. In fact, I have had people say that to me plenty of times. People say like, oh, you don't drink? That's awesome. Way to go. I've been thinking about sobriety myself. Or, people who have a positive response to the sobriety right from the start are awesome. And I love you people. The people who say that stuff, thank you. That feels like encouragement and like you're proud of me for being sober and you understand why somebody might choose to get sober. Oh, it's such a nice feeling. It's like a warm hug when somebody says something positive like that. So if you're curious why somebody doesn't drink, maybe consider saying something like that. Hey, I notice you're not drinking. What is that, by the way? Oh, Bud Zero? Cool. Good for you. That's awesome that you're doing that. And, it just is like they could respond with, thanks so much, and have that be the end of the conversation. Or, thanks, I appreciate that. That's really nice. What are you drinking? And they can respond without having to divulge all their life secrets and their life story and explain why they no longer drink. They say, I notice you're not drinking. Good for you. And you just say, thanks so much. End of conversation. Or that can also open the door if somebody does feel like sharing. Some people like to share. Some people don't. To each their own. That's why I say craft this answer to whatever feels right for you. But if someone comes up to you and says, I notice you're not drinking, good for you. You could either say thanks so much and end it at that, or you could say, thanks, I appreciate that. I've been sober for 8 months and I feel really, really great. You could say, thanks. I struggled with alcohol for a long time and I just feel so much better. So I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you. It's such a nice open way to let the sober person answer however they want to, respond however they want to. You're not grilling them, ostracizing them, judging them. It's a nice positive spin to the question that leaves the door open for the sober person to respond however they like. So I really like phrasing it that way. So fun fact, I just saw that Gen Z spends $1 billion a year on alcohol, whereas the prior 3 generations spend $20 billion each. 20 billion, 20 billion, 20 billion, and then Gen Z, 1 billion. 1/20th of the amount of the previous generations. And that is just so crazy. I mean, sobriety or minimizing alcohol intake is kind of cool and popular and becoming normal in the younger generations. I mean, more information is out there. We have access to so much health information. We know what ingredients and food are not great for us. We're avoiding, red dye 40 and seed oils and alcohol and smoking and vaping. And it's just becoming more well-known what is not good for us. And I think Gen Z is really in tune with that. And that's really cool. And so with that in mind, I think it would be cool if we assumed that sober people are sober because it's not good for you. and let that be the assumption. I think right now, the assumption is that the sober person has a problem. And while that may be true, I think if the assumption was health reasons, that would be a really good place to start. I think if you go in just assuming that somebody doesn't drink because of health reasons, that just gives a nice even playing field, an understanding for that person. And I think with Gen Z coming into the world, into adulthood right now, I think that will be the majority of people's reasons is like, it's not good for you, so I don't drink it. And so I think that should be the assumption. The assumption should not be that the person has a problem. Alcohol is the only drug that people think you have a problem if you don't do it. So backwards. So anyway, I hope this gave you a few ideas for what you can say to the question, why don't you drink? Just think about which one works for you, which one you're most comfortable with. Have one you can say to strangers, one you can say to people you know. And you got this. We're sober for ourselves. We don't owe anybody any answers, but these situations come up and it can be a little awkward if you don't have something prepared. So please share this with your sober friends. Share it with somebody you know who is newly sober. Share with somebody in your AA group or your sobriety group online. I would really appreciate it because word of mouth is the number one way that podcasts are discovered. So if you just mention the podcast, Hold My Drink, a sobriety podcast, to a friend, it would mean the world to me. You can also boost this podcast by leaving a comment, following the podcast, or downloading the episode. I appreciate all your support. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys for the next episode. Bye.